Two players you want to hear more about, Maikel Garcia and Kyle Harrison, up next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5 on Saturday, February 24th. I am Frank Stanfield, joined by Scott White, and let's talk about Maikel Garcia, likely to be the starting third baseman for the Kansas City Royals. And if you remember, on our third base preview, I made the claim that Garcia could be this year's Nico Hoerner. He hits the ball hard, hits a lot of line drives, he's fast, he steals bases, plays on a team that wants to run. Scott, what do you think about Maikel Garcia?
Well, I think it's a good thing he plays for the Royals, first of all. It seems like a utility infielder profile, but on the Royals, he is going to have a job all to himself at third base because they don't have anybody better. And so there's a chance he could make a fantasy impact, maybe mainly because he runs, he's fast enough to steal bases, and he is willing to use it. I think if you just look at the 23 steals he had in 123 games last year, it's easy to see him reaching 30 or potentially even exceeding 30. And that'll have value from an everyday player. It's also possible he bats leadoff for the Royals. It's possible he bats ninth for the Royals, but and that makes a big difference, obviously, whether he bats leadoff or ninth. But if he bats leadoff, then he could score a decent number of runs. He's not he has some pretty good on-base percentages in his minor league track record, I guess. He reached base at a 323 clip in the majors last year. If that improves, then maybe he could turn into a pretty good leadoff hitter. But based on what we've seen from Maikel Garcia in the majors, it doesn't look like he'll get on base enough in what figures to be a bad lineup to be like a run-scoring specialist. But, he could score 80 plus, 85 runs maybe. If he does get to bat leadoff most days for the Royals. Big if, but worth acknowledging from a potential 30 steal guy. And because he hits the ball hard, high exit velocities, because Maikel Garcia has a high line drive rate, which is pretty consistent with his minor league track record, because he hits the ball to all fields, he profiles for a high BABIP, which should be a respectable batting average. I mean, he hit 272. His expected batting average was 274. That does seem like a legitimate part of Maikel Garcia's skill set. So it's a tough fit at third base, I would say, because normally you're looking for power at third base, and that is one thing Maikel Garcia does not provide. But you could see a path here to him being somebody you don't want to take out of your lineup in roto leagues if everything goes right.
Let's talk about Kyle Harrison, one of the top pitching prospects in the game with the San Francisco Giants. He's 22 years old, and last year got a taste with San Francisco, made 7 starts, a 4.15 ERA, a 1.15 whip, just over a strikeout per inning. Surprisingly, Scott, he improved the control from what we saw in the minors. And they let him go deeper into starts, something we were not expecting. So those were the surprises. I guess on the other side of that is we didn't really see as many whiffs or swinging strikes as we wanted to.
Right.
How do you feel about Kyle Harrison this year as a potential sleeper?
I mean, yeah, the talk on Kyle Harrison as a prospect, like heading into last year, was, look at his K rates, 14 K per 9 in the minors. If he could ever figure out how to throw strikes, he could be an ace. And it looks like he figured out how to throw strikes. It was his final 3 starts in the minors. He went from having a 58% strike rate, which is horrible. Ugh. Those last 3 minor league starts, it was 64%. And then the majors was 65%, so it carried over. So it's obviously a smallish sample. Anytime you're talking about a pitching prospect, you're dealing with smallish samples. But it was marked improvement in the one area that everyone said, if Kyle Harrison does this, he's an ace. So why does it seem like his prospect stock has actually dropped? And you made reference to it already. As he was improving his control, we were also coming to realize that maybe his breaking ball isn't going to be a big swing and miss generator. He doesn't really have the secondary pitch that you would like somebody to have to be a strikeout pitcher. Now, his fastball is great. His fastball gets plenty of whiffs, and that is, I think, the first indicator of upside for a starting pitcher is, can he get whiffs with his fastball? Kyle Harrison can, but he needs to do some work on his secondary arsenal. The control, if it holds, was a big hurdle that he cleared. Can he develop a good enough secondary pitch to be more than a mid-rotation guy with the Giants? But if you're talking about his downside is a mid-rotation guy, again, assuming this control holds, then you're still talking about a pretty good fantasy asset. And it seems like he already has a job locked up for the Giants. Kyle Harrison, in his 7-start stint last year in the majors, he had an 11 strikeout performance. That was the second start. 6 1/3 shutout innings. So, even with the concerns over his secondary arsenal, Harrison showed that he does have some bat missing ability. Again, that fastball certainly is capable of delivering them. I think he's being underrated in drafts right now, not just as a prospect, but in drafts right now. And I'd target him just outside my top 50 at starting pitcher.
Yeah, and the ADP is 264.4 as the 71st starting pitcher off the board. So yeah, quite a bit of a discount there on Kyle Harrison. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Audacy app, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we'll be back again next week. Bye-bye.